Hi everyone, this is a short video to capture the highlights of our mindfulness study on Wednesday, January 27th. So if you weren't able to make it, this will cover all of the main points except for we won't have the guided mindfulness portion or the study discussion questions. But if you would like to have those as you watch, you can always queue up your 10% Happier app and review the study questions as we go along. So, here again are our study objectives, and today we're really going to be talking about our study objective right here, which is learning and practicing mindfulness skills that support stress reduction. So, today's session is going to be all about stress reduction in relation to meditation. So, as we jump into our video today, I wanted to start by posing this question. How much stress have you felt in the last 6 months, or we could even extend that to a year? And I want us to just take a moment and really pause to think about how much has been on our plates in the last 6 months. How much stress have we felt that we've been carrying around? When I took this new position, I already knew that a big part of what I wanted to focus on was educator stress and burnout because from being in the classroom, I really struggled with stress and feelings of burnout even before COVID. And what I have found so interesting is that when I've brought this idea of educator stress forward as a real growing problem, every single person in education has agreed or really understands on a pretty deep personal level how much stress is impacting us, but has no one has been able to figure out what do we do about it or how do we move forward in a way that we're going to be able to help support educators with this growing amount of stress and burnout. So, my goal today is going to be to try to do better by starting that real conversation about stress and really what we need to understand if we want to be able to do something about it. So, just a disclaimer, stress in education is not one single issue, it's a really complex and systemic problem. So, we won't be able to eliminate all of the stressors or fix this problem of educator stress in one session or even a six-week mindfulness course, but we can start the conversation about how to deal with stress and start to build that space so we can tackle the larger issues as a collective group. So, to start this conversation, I wanted to give us a better understanding of what burnout is. So, burnout was defined by Herbert Freudenberger in 1975 with these three components. And if you want to go ahead and just hold up a finger as I read these, if you have experienced this component or you are currently experiencing this component. So the first one is emotional exhaustion, which is the fatigue that comes from caring too much. Two is depersonalization, the depletion of empathy, caring, and compassion. And the third one is a decreased sense of accomplishment, an unconquerable sense of futility, feeling that nothing you do makes a difference. So I'm just going to let us sit for that for a moment to think about how do these three components resonate with us as educators right now or in the past. So, to talk about burnout today, we are going to be diving into this book called Burnout: The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. I listened to Brene Brown's podcast, Unlocking Us, and she had Emily and Amelia Nagotsky on, who are the authors of Burnout. And I went and bought the book the next day because I thought they just did such an incredible job of talking about burnout and really bringing us forward the science about it. So we're going to be referencing them a lot as we go through today's session. The first thing that we need to talk about when talking about emotional exhaustion is a little bit about emotions themselves and what they are, kind of like a little second step lesson for adults, but really understanding what emotions are and how they happen in the body. So, emotions are these neurological and physiological responses to stimuli. They are universal in that every single person experiences emotions. I actually heard a quote once that said, we view ourselves as these thinking beings who sometimes feel emotion. We've probably all known that person who's like, I'm not emotional. When really, in actuality, we're emotional beings who sometimes have good thoughts. So once we start to understand that emotions are this universal thing and they're really this neurological and physiological response, then we can start to be able to work with that emotional exhaustion. So, emotions start in our brains and then they actually transfer through our entire bodies and our nervous systems. And Emily and Amelia Nagotsky talk about emotional exhaustion as when we get stuck in an emotion. So, I'm just going to sit for that for a second. When we get stuck in that response in our body. Now, they say the way to work through emotional exhaustion is to view emotions like tunnels. They say that emotions are tunnels, and if you go all the way through them, you get to the light at the end of the tunnel. So now I'm going to take a moment to dive in and read just a short section of chapter 1 of the book Burnout, titled Complete the Stress Cycle. I thought this little introduction did a really great job to relate us as educators to stress and what we can be able to do about it. So, chapter 1, Complete the Cycle. I've decided to start selling drugs so I can quit my job. This is how Amelia's friend Julie recently answered the question, "How are you?" the Saturday before the new school year started. She was kidding, of course, except she wasn't. She's a middle school teacher. Her burnout had reached an intensity where merely the anticipation of the start of the first semester had activated a level of dread that left her reaching for a box of Chardonnay before 2 p.m. Nobody likes to think of their kid's middle school teacher as burned out, embittered, and day drinking, but she's not alone. Burnout, with its cynicism, sense of helplessness, and above all, emotional exhaustion, is startlingly ubiquitous. I saw that story about the teacher who showed up on the first day of school drunk with no pants and thought, there, but for the grace of God I go, Julie told Amelia from the bottom of her glass. Dread is anxiety on steroids, Amelia said, remembering her own days teaching middle school music. The anxiety comes from the accumulation day after day, and the stress never ends. Yes, Julie declared, filling her glass again. The thing about teaching is you can't ever get rid of the cause of the stress. Amelia said, and I don't mean the kids. Right, Julie agreed. The kids are why I'm there. It's the administration and the paperwork and all of that. And you can't get rid of those kinds of stressors, Amelia said, but you can get rid of the stress itself when you know how to complete the stress response cycle. Yes, Julie said again empathetically. Then she said, what do you mean? Complete the cycle. So now let's dive in and talk a little bit about what it is to complete the stress cycle. And as we do that, I want to take a moment to differentiate between stress and stressors, because dealing with your stress is a separate process from dealing with the things that cause the stress. So a stressor is what activates the stress response cycle in your body. So we can think of stressors in two ways. External, which can be work, money, family, cultural norms, expectations. We could probably list off several more that are really specific to education. And then we have internal stressors, things like self-criticism, body image, identity, memories, and thoughts of the future. I want to pause here for a moment because as we start to really develop our mindfulness practice, we start to realize how real these internal stressors are in affecting our stress levels. Now, stress is that neurological and physiological shift that happens in our bodies when we encounter a stressor. So, if we want to be able to deal with the stress and complete the stress cycle, we need to understand how that stress is manifesting in our body. I put this little scoreboard here because my partner Leanna had once told me when I was feeling really stressed and I was starting to get sick, she was like, well, your body keeps the score. And I've never forgotten that, because while we're managing the day's stressors, our body is really managing the day's stress. And it is essential to our well-being, just like sleeping and eating, that we give our bodies the resources it needs to complete the stress response cycle. So now I'm going to give us a list of ways that the research or the science says that we can help our bodies to complete the stress cycle. A lot of these are going to seem pretty obvious, or you're probably already doing them, but I really do want to call out this is the things that we can do to help our bodies move through stress. So the first one is physical activity. Any movement of any kind that feels good to you. It can be walking, dancing, spinning, yoga, swimming, anything that gets you moving that you find enjoyable. The next one is breathing, so taking those really nice, deep, slow breaths. We also have positive social interaction. So this could be something like a casual conversation with your barista or a coworker. That casual but friendly social interaction is the first external sign that the world is a safe place. Next, we've got laughing, so that really authentic laughter. Affection. Relationship researcher John Gottman talks about the 6-second kiss, and if you hug someone you love for 20 seconds. We also have a big old cry, so really just letting all of the emotions release, and then creative expression. So any way that you like to express yourself creatively, it could be writing or drawing or coloring or dancing, but really any way that you're working that creative side of your brain. So, now that I've just given us a list of all of these ways that we can help our bodies move through stress, you're probably thinking, I knew a lot of these and I'm still feeling stressed. So, how do we give ourselves the space and capacity to complete the stress cycle when we have our culture up against us? So I pulled this quote from Brene Brown that I thought was really great that says, in a society that says put yourself last, self love and self acceptance are almost revolutionary, which means that as educators who are living in a world that really has this amount of systemic stress, we have to do something that's almost revolutionary to be able to move ourselves into a new era where we're taking more care of ourselves. So, how do we do this? How do we make this revolutionary change? Well, I don't have all of the answers, but I want to start the conversation together. And what I do know is that making cultural change means that we're going to have to change our cultural habits and really reattune to our cultural values. And how do we do that? How do we get ourselves to change cultural habits and reattune cultural values? Well, I think it starts with individuals and our individual habits and really reflecting and reattuning to our individual values. So, I want to reference Kelly McGonigal, who is a behavior change expert and coach in the Habits course on the 10% Happier app. If you are interested in continuing any of the courses after our study is over, I highly suggest this one because it's so good. But she says that habit change is actually a process of self discovery and finding ways to live with integrity for what matters for you. So, when we think about changing our habits, we want to reframe habit formation by tapping into our deepest motivation and really tuning into the part of ourselves who wants the best for ourselves and not that part of ourselves that is worried about what's expected of us, what people are expecting of us to be good teachers and good mothers and good partners, but really, what is it that we can tune into that we want the best for ourselves? What do we value? What protects our peace? So, some examples of how these needs and values could be written, or some examples that I've came up with for myself, are connection, really feeling connected with our families and friends and coworkers and students. Feeling a sense of purpose in our work, which I think is incredibly important as educators. We cannot lose this purpose and this drive that we have for our occupation because it's such a factor in contributing to our students' success and their passion for education and their passion for learning. And this last one, which is really close to my own heart, is just having more energy for ourselves, for our children, for our families. I think it is too often that we negate really important things like sleep and movement, which just doesn't give us enough energy to be able to take on all of the important things in our lives. So we won't have enough time in this session to be able to really dedicate some good time to that reflection, but that is what is going to be coming in our next session. So we are going to start making a shift in our mindfulness study where we not only practice meditation, but we practice the ways that we can start to leverage those skills to be able to make change in our own lives. So next time we're going to have a lot of time for reflection and really thinking about what do we want to build space and capacity for. Also, for next time, we are going to be diving into the relationships course on the 10% Happier app, which I am so excited about. This is my favorite course on the app. It is the course that really got me hooked on keeping up with a consistent meditation practice. We'll be working in this course to really, again, foster that meditation practice paired with reflection and using those skills in our lives. This is a really incredible course to do with a partner or a family member at home because you'll actually be able to walk away practicing really incredible communication skills. So, looking forward to seeing you guys next time, where we will be spending some time reflecting on all of the areas that matter most for us. I will make sure to send out another reminder as we get closer, but please make sure to have a notebook, a pen, a pencil, or a Google Doc ready to record all of your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for being part of this study and sharing in all of these really important and challenging conversations about our educator well being and really the well being of everybody around us. Looking forward to seeing you guys next week and hope you have a fantastic weekend. Bye.